Everybody, welcome back to Northernlion Plays The Binding of Isaac Afterbirth Plus. There's an unrecognized gamepad. There's an interloper. It's known as a Logitech G29 force feedback enabled steering wheel with optional pedals accessory. EJ NL, easy job for me, LX8F. With blanket, whatever. Compost, okay. And Libra, which from looking at my face I thought was duality here. It's a very interesting start. And when I say interesting, I always mean interesting. You know, I grew up in an era where wait a minute, is it duality? Because we have a one, oh no, it's an XL floor, I see. I grew up in an era where interesting literally always meant bad, but I'm too polite to say anything about it. It's not the case anymore, you know. I think interesting has been given its dictionary definition back. Next on the list is sketchy, which refers to somebody who is, you know, perhaps in their mid-30s, but exclusively hangs out with high school students. And probably has a soul patch. No offense if you're in this photo and don't like it. But soon, I hope, it will come to mean, yet again, its original dictionary definition, one who sketches frequently. Like, oh, she sketches. You guys ever have that in your high school? I mean, we're getting into some... Let me put it this way. You know, it shouldn't be controversial, I think. I always have an over... Yes, because of Libra? Yo, look at the incredible all stats up. Oh my god. We went from 10 rate of fire, like 3 damage, to 3 rate of fire and 23 damage. Oh my god. But, you know, do you guys follow I forget the Twitter account, but it's the worst threads from r/relationships, and of course by worst, what I actually mean is best for entertainment value, but the worst for the people that are involved with it because it's sad stories. However, I will say that most, well maybe not most, but many of those stories I believe are probably fake. But so many of the stories that are like, they really make you think, if that makes sense. It starts with like, you know, a 19-year-old girl and like a 55-year-old man. And then you're like, please don't be weird or gross. And then you get like 2 paragraphs into it and you're like, oh, that's a little weird. And then you get like 4 paragraphs into it and you're like, it's a little gross. Don't take this the wrong way, by the way. You know, between adults of the age of majority, I don't really care what you do. Do I judge? Maybe I judge a little bit, okay? But, you know, and perhaps that's a bad habit. But I think, you know, let me put it this way. You know, when I went to high school, there was a popular girl in our high school who, when she was 16, was dating, like, a guy who was, like, 24. And at the time, I wouldn't say that we thought that the dude was cool. I mean, I wasn't really friends with her, to be honest. Like, we had an awareness of one another, but we were not even really, like, acquaintances. We ran in different circles. Let's put it that way. This run, by the way, is completely sorted. And at the time, you know, nobody was like, oh, that guy, he's like, you know, the coolest guy I've ever seen in my entire life. But it was definitely, there was almost a vibe of like, you know, I'm a 15-year-old or 16-year-old boy. How am I supposed to compete with like a 24-year-old man? He's got a cool job, sweet baseball hat with Jeff Gordon's face on it. One of those cool racing jackets, you know? And then once you hit like, you know, 24, and, you know, hopefully you're not, like, hanging out with 16-year-olds willingly all day, you realize, oh, that guy's not cool at all. Like, that There's nothing more uncool than I think being, you know, in your early to mid-20s and being like, yeah, sorry guys, I can't hang out. I gotta go hang out with some 11th graders. I'm obviously also ignoring the, I don't want to call it nefarious, but the more slimy aspects of an 8-year age gap with someone who's in high school. But in my defense, I was also 15 or 16 back then. And, you know, didn't really necessarily, you know, those elements, I was like, yeah, it's a little weird, but, I mean, dude, this is no joke. Like, the area where I grew up, you guys are, you don't even understand. I might not be the most enlightened individual on Earth. I'm probably, like, second or third, but, you don't understand, like, where I grew up, okay? This is a real story. The area where I grew up, I had a friend... he was my neighbor, so we were friends by, you know, geographic convenience, more or less. When he was 12, he was dating a 19-year-old girl who also happened to live, like, 4 doors down, which was like a mile. So this is the area that we, you know, I grew up in. And at the time, you know, were people like... It's really weird that, you know, this 12-year-old kid has a 19-year-old girlfriend. Yeah! But nobody was like, you know, this is disgusting and we have to get the police involved. Probably should have been, you know, but it's not even, it was a different era. We just lived in, like, where I lived was international waters, you know? So that's where we grew up. That's why anytime Malf or I say something vaguely controversial, you should recognize that we climbed from the loam to be the intellectuals that you see in front of you on a daily basis now. Regardless, though. I mean, these are terrible stories. I don't disagree, but, you know. I'm just trying to tell... If you're watching this and you're 16, please don't be offended by the idea that, you know, men in their 20s or 30s might not willingly want to spend their Fridays and Saturdays hanging out with you. I'm actually, believe it or not, I'm looking out for you. And, like, 99% of people are going to be like, yeah, I get it. But then, like, 1% of people are going to be like, you don't understand. And, like, I do. Maybe I don't. Maybe you're the one scenario where it's like you have a connection or something. But I'm like, trust me, I get it. It's just a little weird. I'm just trying to protect you. Now, mind you, I feel like I'm definitely preaching to the converted. Because, like, you know... Most people watching this, I think, have grown up with Isaac. There's not a whole lot of people that are watching this that are like, oh, what's this game about? This is my first Isaac episode. So I'm assuming most people watching this are, you know, late teens, minimum. There's probably some people that are, you know, in their early teens, but, you know, late teens and up, 20s, 30s, and older, I'm sure. Welcome, you know, it's an all-ages thrill ride here on this incredible run where, honestly, we've been given way too much bounty early. I think what it strikes me in those threads, and again, you know, maybe you're watching this and, you know, you're in a relationship with someone who's 20 years older than you or 20 years younger than you, and it's all above board and legal. That's cool. Don't get me wrong. And I mean, when I say that's cool, I don't mean that's cool. I mean it's legal. I don't know if it's cool. That's for you guys to evaluate on a case-by-case basis. I'm not trying to really cause anybody problems here. I'm giving you my 2 cents. Now I'm realizing this is like... comeuppance. You ever like go to see a stand-up comedian and then he starts talking about something that like is a little too close to home? You know, hey ladies, and then you're like, oh, here we go again. Does your man have stinky farts? And you're like, oh, we gotta go. This is too close. It's uncomfortable. So if I'm doing that to you, I apologize, but also recognize, you know, that I get it. But like, you know, so many of these threads, whether they're real or otherwise, you know, if they're unreal, it's not fair to use them as like a, you know, a litmus test for badness necessarily. Let me caffeinate. But they're like, you know, I'm 19, my boyfriend's 75. But it's not like a big deal because age is just a number and I'm like really mature for my age. Hey, you might be like really mature for your age, you know? You might be like 19 but have the mentality of a 40-year-old. Which would just mean that mentally this man is dating somebody that's still mentally 35 years younger than he is, but it's more like, I don't know, man. Like, I'm 30. I don't know if I've mentioned that 75 times yet this episode. Don't take this the wrong way if you're in this demographic. This is the natural course of life, okay? I'm 30. The idea of willingly hanging out with some 21-year-olds who, like, recently, you know, they just got the ability to legally drink alcohol in establishments and have never voted in a federal election. You know, and this is stereotyping, okay? There's 21-year-olds who are way more mature than me. There's like 13-year-olds that have made 3D printers that print like vaccines or something like that. But I'm talking about, you know, I'm talking about myself at 21, basically. You know, their long-term planning basically involves saving enough money by doing meal prep that they can afford to, you know, stay lit all school year. The idea of willingly hanging out with people in that age demographic is unpleasant to me. I can't even imagine, you know, being 40, 50, 60 years old and being like, yeah, you know what my life could really use at this moment? Somebody that's 20 years old. And it is ignorant of me, perhaps. You know, I'm sure there's lots of, what do they call them? In a bad term, you use, like, robbing the cradle. In a good way, you say, like, so it's a May-October romance, or whatever the heck it's called. Which basically means someone's about to die, but that's okay because we're in love. Which is, you know, again, who am I to judge, right? I'm just saying. And partly this is a me thing, you know? Like, I've probably espoused the opinion before that, you know, perhaps, why did I get rid of compost, dude, for bottle of pills? Like, I'm flying blind right now, because the run is way too good. Not that I'm complaining, by the way. But, you know, I think mentally, like, I have an old soul. Is what people tell me. Which is basically, their way of saying, you know that you're boring and you like it. And that's very true. I'm caffeinating here for a second. That's the honest to goodness truth, and there's no doubt about it. But, like, I think, you know, when I was, like, 16, you know, don't take this the wrong way, again, if you're 16, but you don't really know anything about adult life, probably. Of course, there's situations where, you know, like, maybe you've been providing for and raising your family from 16. Obviously, I'm not talking about you. You're a special case. And good for you, honestly. Now, that's not like a sarcastic good for you. That's like a, you know, sometimes circumstance forces you to grow up early, and that's unfortunate. But at the same time, you're doing a good deed. But you'd see, like, you know, 70-year-old actors dating his 30-year-old co-star. And you're like, you know what? Good for him. Then you know, now that I'm 30, when they're like 70-year-old actor is dating his 30-year-old co-star, I'm like, man, it seems like a lot of work. I don't know. Maybe I've got a weird attitude about it. I don't think I do, though. I'm not saying that Harrison Ford and Ally McBeal, a.k.a. Callista Flockhart, can't have a wonderful relationship. I'm not saying they can't be kindred spirits. I'm not saying they can't be soulmates. All I'm saying is that I hope by the time that I don't know, people, they're very negative about getting older. They think that, you know, you reach a certain age and your personality just rots or something like that. And I've known some just absolutely horrible old people. There's no doubt about that. I don't think the secret to avoiding that necessarily, and what do I know? You know, I'm not even close to getting that 15% seniors discount yet, but, you know, I don't think the secret is necessarily just maintaining the same attitude as, you know, when you're younger, you know? I think it's possible to become one of those, like, cool 70-year-olds. I will say, though, you know, when I was younger and, you know, there's a classic trope in media of, like, an old guy on his porch with a shotgun. And then whenever somebody steps on his property, he cocks the shotgun and points it at them and goes like, get off of my property. When I was younger, I was kind of like, I don't understand. What's that? Dude, it's just land, you know? Why would you assume the worst of the people coming to your property? Like, I don't understand why it's such a big deal to you. Can't you just have a conversation? I'm not saying I'm going to be that guy. Dude, we can't take the D100. This run is too golden, and it's been given to us, and it's beautiful. I don't want to give it up. This is more interesting than your average D100 run by about a factor of 5,000. But, I'm not saying I'm going to be that guy, but the older I get, the more I'm like, well, if you didn't want to get the shotgun pointed at him, there's an easy way to avoid it. Don't step onto my property. I get very... The defining feature of me getting older is that I get very annoyed by unnecessary intrusions. And I have this habit of, whenever I get a phone call and it doesn't pop up on caller ID, I Google the phone number. And I don't think that's an old person thing, because, again, I'm not old. I think it's just it's a modern times thing, Now that you have the opportunity, you can Google and be like, okay, is this a scammer? Who's blowing up my phone? Blah, blah, blah. But now I get upset. Like, if I get a phone call and I Google it and it's like, hey, we're selling, I don't know. Let's say it's a gutter cleaning service, but it's not a scam, because I know that a bunch of them are, like, actual scams. I get upset that you're, like, using phone advertising. I'm like, in my head, because I'm not going to pick up the phone and have a conversation with them, because who has that kind of time? But I'm mad now when I get a phone call. There are, like, 4 people on planet Earth that I will not be mad to receive a phone call from. My wife and both of my parents, that's about it. Maybe, yeah, why not, dude? Maybe when I get older, like, a friend calls me out of the blue and is like, hey, how you doing? Doesn't bother me, Now, it would kind of bother me. I'd be like, brother, just pop into the Discord, just because you want to talk right now, it doesn't mean I got the time to talk right now, People are busy. I wouldn't call you out of the blue and just expect you to have a conversation with me. I think I kind of see it like mail, Like physical letters. When I was younger, the mail never got me anxious, because you only get mail for like a couple of different reasons when you're young. You get like maybe a birthday card with 20 bucks shoved in it from an aunt who lives in Manitoba. Or, I mean, that's it, right? Or it's just that and flyers. Oh, chicken breast is on sale at No Frills this week. As an adult, is pretty much the same, except you also get sent scams. Like, hey, do you want to apply for our credit card that has a 74% interest rate? And you're like, nah, it's good. And then the flyers are directed at you. And then it's just the government. Like, and that's why the mail, I wouldn't say it's anxiety-inducing, Like, I stay on top of all of my adult responsibilities. I pay my tax installments in the proper amounts. But still, when you get a letter from the government, dude, that's sometimes we got 3 letters from the government last week, and I don't want to give you too much information on it, but that's a scary thought. The first letter I opened said, your account is good, it's copacetic, it's balanced, see you next year. And I was like, that's fantastic news, thank you. I don't know why you're sending me this, because I thought we had it under control, 3 months ago, but that's cool. The second one I opened had a check with a refund in it, and I was like, that's sick. And then the third one I opened was like, please pay us this much, every 3 months. And that's standard, that's par for the course, that's not a bill. I mean, it is a bill, but the bill existed before getting the letter. But to receive 3 letters from our version of the IRS in a single week, I gotta tell you, that's like the adult version of being 8 years old and seeing Mufasa hanging out on the cliff's edge and being like, well, don't worry about it too much. Scar's gonna pull him up. You might think I'm unusual in that regard, but Dan and I have talked about it too. And he's like, when I get a letter from like the cable company or the electric company or whatever, I toss it on like the kitchen counter and I'm like, I'll deal with it later tonight. I get a letter from the IRS. It's like, I'm cracking that bad boy open, you know, right next to my mailbox. I gotta know, how's the rest of my day going? So the recurring theme of this episode, of course, is that kids just have it too easy, man. I'm joking. I mean, they do and they don't. I mean, it's like everything in life, you know? Some kids have it too easy. Some kids have an unfairly terrible life, you know? That's not to say that, you know, nothing should be done about it. I'm just saying. I get that it's a nuanced discussion. I am stunned, by the way, that we're about to have a 17-minute Isaac episode where I'm pretty sure we have not been threatened, like, whatsoever over the course of it. I drank, like, an eighth of my coffee. I usually drink the whole thing. Either way, thanks for watching. I hope you've enjoyed the episode. If you did, click the like button. Helps out a great deal. And, of course, subscribe if you want to see more in the future. For now, thanks for watching, and I will see you next time. See ya!